will be in English. So if you need translation service, please use your receiver on your seat. And tune to channel 1 for Korean, channel 2 for English. Thank you. Let me introduce this forum order. First, there will be opening ceremony and welcome remarks. Next, session 1, air pollution seen from space, what GEMS is and what we can see from the big data. And session 2, how science can support the policy and technology cooperation addressing the issue of transboundary air pollution. Last, session 3, envisioning a regional modality on air pollution in the Northeast Asia and the Asia Pacific. Yeah. Okay, we are going to start the international forum, so may I ask everyone to please come inside and have your seat, please. And turn your phones off or on silence mode during the event. If you need translation service, please use your receiver on your seat. Tune to channel 1 for Korean, channel 2 for English. Thank you. The first celebration was in 2020 and themed Clean Air for All. This was followed by the second commemoration in 2021 under the theme Healthy Air, Healthy Planet. And this year, the International Day of Clean Air for Blue Skies will raise awareness. Thank you. Hello, my name is Hira Kim. I'm your MC for today. It's very honor to all of you. And there will be opening ceremony and welcome remarks. First welcome remark is Kim Hyo-eun, Ambassador, Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Please come up to the stage. Thank you. Let's give an applause to you, for him.
If you allow me, I would like to take off the mask. Thank you. So, Her Excellency, Madame Woo Bo-chan, Secretary General of the Trilateral Cooperation Secretariat among Korea, Japan, and China. Her Excellency Armida Ali Shabana, Executive Secretary of UN ESCAP, who is delivering the message virtually, and many dear ambassadors, my friends, Excellencies, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to warmly welcome you to the second International Forum on Transboundary Air Pollution, organized by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Republic of Korea, celebrating the third anniversary of the International Day of Clean Air for Blue Skies. Fortunately, we have such a nice blue sky this morning with clean air. I also would like to express my heartfelt appreciation for all participants who are joining us physically or virtually from different locations around the globe. So Korea is the country that proposed and led efforts for the adoption of the International Day of Clean Air for Blue Skies 3 years ago. 3 years ago in the United Nations. And I'm very pleased that we are now celebrating the third International Day in major cities around the world, from Bangkok to Nairobi and New York. Here in Seoul as well, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the Ministry of Environment, we co-hosted the national commemoration yesterday, and our local governments, they are holding a variety of events to raise awareness on clean air. I'm convinced that these global movements will enhance public awareness on the seriousness and negative consequences of air pollution and strengthen the international partnership and solidarity in making the air we share cleaner. Distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, the overarching theme of this year's International Day of Clean Air for Blue Skies is the air we share, which clearly shows that we all have collective responsibility to take action to make our air cleaner. The COVID-19 pandemic and natural disasters around the globe we have experienced over the last few years keep telling us that we are all interconnected to one another, and there is an urgent need to take collective actions to tackle global challenges such as climate change and the pandemic. Air pollution is another global challenge that we must act against together. It is the single greatest environmental threat to human health, as 90% of the world population breathe, unfortunately, unclear air, and an estimated 7 million people around the world face premature death due to air pollution every year. It is more troubling that air pollution is rampant in developing countries, hindering their sustainable development, and it disproportionately affects women, children, and the elderly. There is also a correlation between air pollution and COVID-19, as a recent study found that the long-term exposure to air pollution can increase the COVID-19 mortality. With this sense of urgency and need for action, Korea, as a global pivotal state, joins the global movement to improve air quality for all, firmly committed to further enhancing its national action and collaboration with other countries and UN agencies. At the national level, the Korean government has been putting its utmost efforts to improve the air quality, aiming for 30% reduction in the levels of fine particulate matter by 2027. To achieve this goal, Korea plans to reduce its fossil fuel generation and encourage the use of electric and hydrogen vehicles. At the regional level, Korea has been closely working with UN ESCOM member countries, as Korea will share with 13 of them the scientific data on air pollutants gathered from the geostationary satellite under the project titled Pan-Asia Partnership for Geospatial Air Pollution Information. I hope that the session 1 and session 2 of this forum will give you insight on how scientific data can help us to strengthen cooperation among countries to address the challenge of transboundary air pollution. At the sub-regional level, Korea has been firmly supporting the Northeast Asia Clean Air Partnership, NEACAP, an initiative under the Northeast Asia Sub-Regional Program for Environmental Cooperation, NEASPEC, with an aim to promote science-based and policy-oriented cooperation to reduce air pollution in the sub-region. I believe that session 3 of this forum will introduce us to some of the regional and sub-regional mechanisms we have in this region and explore ways to further enhance them. Distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, let us not forget that everyone on this planet has a right to enjoy clean air and blue skies. Something should be done to make our air cleaner, and it can be done when all of us, governments, international organizations, NGOs, businesses, and ordinary citizens do something about it. Small things we do today to improve air quality will make a big difference tomorrow for our children. I hope that today's forum will be a good opportunity to explore effective ways to tackle transboundary air pollution and renew our commitment to making our air cleaner and our skies bluer. Also, this afternoon, there is a field trip program. You will have the chance to visit Incheon City, which is the Environmental Satellite Center. I think this is going to be a useful opportunity to witness the science-based collaboration among Northeast Asian countries. So I hope all of you enjoy this forum as well as the field trip this afternoon. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Let's give an applause for their wonderful speech. Thank you. And second welcome remark is Oh Bo-chen, TCS Secretary General. She takes part in online video message. We will watch the video. And she was Vice President, Chinese People's Institute of Foreign Affairs, Secretary General, Trilateral Cooperation Secretariat.
Thank you very much. Your Excellency Ambassador Kim Hong-young, Ambassador and Deputy Minister of Climate Change of the Republic of Korea, Her Excellency Amida Alice Jabana, Executive Secretary of UNESCO, honorable guests, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the Trilateral Cooperation Secretariat, I'm pleased and honored to join you all at the International Forum on Transboundary Air Pollution. And I would like to extend my gratitude to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Korea for organizing this important forum. TCS is an international organization founded in 2011 to contribute to the cooperative relationship among China, Japan, and Korea. The mission of TCS is to promote trilateral cooperation in all areas, with a vision of achieving lasting peace, common prosperity, and shared culture in this region. China, Japan, and Korea have many commonalities among each other. We have all achieved one of the highest levels of economic growth in the world, but we are also in a strong and common need of improving air quality due to our rapid industrialization and urbanization. And according to an environmental working paper published by OECD last month, more than three-quarters of the population of Japan and nearly the entire population of China and Korea are affected by fine particle concentration. The air we share could be a common asset we share, as well as a common challenge that we need to address together. It is not just a one country, one region problem, it's a global problem that we need to fix together. Cooperation is a must when it comes to environmental issues. We must share our knowledge, we must transfer our technology, we must exchange our policies to tackle the common challenges of the region and the world. CJK is one of the most innovative hubs in the world, taking up to 61.4% of the world patent application, especially in the fields of ICT. Our region is also a hub for scientific and technological journal articles. In the year 2018, 693,000 scientific research and academic articles has been published in our region, boosting research and development. Furthermore, CJK has been taking collective policy actions through mechanisms such as the tripartite policy dialogue on air pollution and working group on dust and sandstorms. With these resources and brain power, I am confident that we can find innovative solutions for our common challenges. TCS also puts lots of efforts in making our skies cleaner. TCS is a long-time supporter of the Tripartite Environmental Ministries meeting, providing technical support as well as conducting projects assigned by the ministers' meeting. TCS will continue to carry out environmental protection program and develop further projects that could improve the air quality in this region and beyond. Ladies and gentlemen, in the past 3 years, the pandemic has brought us some difficulties in international cooperation. However, that does not mean that our ties has been loosened. We still share the same sky, the same ocean, and the same air. The history of trilateral cooperation among China, Japan, and Korea tells us that whenever there are big challenges, there are strong desire and more opportunity for us to cooperate with each other. And let us join hands together and cooperate to tackle our challenges and to protect the air we share. I sincerely believe that your insight and expertise will be an excellent contribution to today's forum, that this forum be a solid foundation for stronger cooperation in making our skies bluer and cleaner in the future. I wish today's forum a great success. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes. So I very apologize about delivering wrong information. She participated in here, not online. But you had a kind heart, so please understand me. And second welcome remarks is Armida Sharbana, of UN US CAP Executive Secretary. She's participate in here online, so we watch the video.
Excellencies, distinguished guests, it is my pleasure to be with you at the International Forum on Transboundary Air Pollution in commemoration of the 3rd International Day of Clean Air for Blue Skies.
Aleha Baba, head of the National Development Planning Agency, and she is Minister of National Development Planning, and she is Executive Secretary of UN ESCAP. And she has worked as Executive Secretary of UN ESCAP since 2018. And chair of the Economics and Development Studies Department and Vice President of the Indonesian Academy of Science, also. A member of the high-level independent team of advisors to UN. And she worked as head of National Development Planning Agency, also. Yeah, you know, I'm a Korean, and this is first time for 100% English MC. So I try to overcome this situation. So let's give an applause to me, please. Thank you. Yeah, I wanted to introduce this forum. The first celebration was in 2020 and themed Clean Air for All. This was followed by the second commemoration in 2021 under the theme Healthy Air, Healthy Planet. This year, the International Day of Clean Air for Blue Skies will raise awareness on the urgency of strengthening national action and regional collaboration to improve air quality with the global theme of the air we share.
Excellencies, distinguished guests, it is my pleasure to be with you at the International Forum on Transboundary.
Yeah, I'll give you more explanation about...
Excellencies, distinguished guests, it is my pleasure to be with you at the International Forum on Transboundary Air Pollution in commemoration of the 3rd International Day of Clean Air for Blue Skies. Air pollution is one of our region's most pressing environmental, health, and economic challenge facing us today. Pollution exempts no one from its impact. It is my hope that this forum is not only a discussion about air pollution, but a platform for urgent action to save lives. We know that 2/3 of the 7 million premature deaths accountable to air pollution each year are in our region, and more than 90% of our population breathe air that poses health risks. Globally, it is believed that the average life expectancy of individuals exposed to unsafe levels of air pollution decreases by 2.2 years. In our region, this can be as high as 8 years. There are, however, significant inequities in the impact of air pollution worldwide. At the local scale, poorer or disadvantaged communities often are exposed to higher levels of air pollution, and globally, low and middle income countries see both high exposures and large health impacts. Air pollution disproportionately affects those with the least resources to protect themselves, and specifically children and older persons, with household air pollution disproportionately affecting women and children the most. Now is the time to focus on the solutions to this critical challenge and capitalize on the multiple benefits of clean air. Our region's air pollution comes from a myriad of sources, and solutions must be responsive to those contexts. Phasing out coal-based energy, and building renewable energy systems will immediately improve air quality. Low-carbon mobility transitions must be part of local and national actions to improve air quality. Promoting sustainable agricultural processes, including mechanization, to eliminate harmful emissions from crop burning is essential to clean air and to securing the region's food supply, and can help small-scale farmers to improve their livelihoods. No country can tackle this problem alone. Pollution has no borders and can travel across most of the continent within 3 to 4 days. This is why we need to address it as a regional and transboundary issue. Regional cooperation is essential. I'm encouraged that these Clean Air Days and the sub-regional dialogues on air pollution that ESCAP organized earlier this year have led to member states deliberating on actions to be taken to strengthen regional cooperation on air pollution. Elements of regional cooperation must build on existing sub-regional initiatives and include strengthening air quality standards, sharing data, exchanging best practices, building capacities across the region, and committing to long-term multilateral cooperation to eliminate air pollution. In this regard, I applaud the collaborative approach of countries in Northeast Asia to address air pollution through the Northeast Asia Clean Air Partnership and appreciate the leadership of the Republic of Korea in promoting the collaboration. Building upon these experiences, let us recommit to tackling this problem together. Now, at this third commemoration of the International Day of Clean Air for Blue Skies, we should all fully understand the problem, the unique circumstances of each country, and the effects on all of our citizens. Today should further boost awareness, and our common message should be that we need to take action now and work as one for the air we share. I look forward to a robust discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Please give a hand to her. Thank you. Yeah. Opening and reading have just finished. Next, there will be session 1, 2, 3 at 10:30. Yeah. After that, we have our luncheon. Session 1, top 1 theme is air pollution seen from space, what GEMS is, and what we can see from the big data. And session 2, how science can support the policy and technology cooperation addressing the issue of transboundary air pollution. Last, session 3, envisioning a regional modality on air pollution in the Northeast Asia and the Asia Pacific. Thank you. Attention please, there will be a photo time, so various ambassadors come up to the stage and take a pose, please. We'll take a photo time, so various ambassadors come up to the stage and take a photo together. Are you ready? Yeah. 3, 2, 1. Yeah. Clean air for blue sky. 3, 2, 1. Check up. Yeah, one more time. Yeah. Okay. The air we share. 3, 2, 1. Check up. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Come to the stage. Go around your seat. Thank you. Pay attention, please. We will start the session 1, 2, 3 after 5 minutes. So please come up to the seat. Have a seat. Sorry. And we will prepare the coffee and tea in the lobby. So help yourself. Thank you. Attention, please. We are going to start the session 1, 2, 3 after 5 minutes at 10:35. So may I ask everyone to please come inside and take your seats, please. Thank you. Pay attention, please. We will start session 1 to 3. Please turn your phones off or on silence mode during the session. Yeah. Yeah, we are going to start session 1. Session 1 topic is air pollution seen from space, what GEMS is and what we can see from the big data. Lee Dong-won, he is Director of Environmental Satellite Center at the National Institute of Environmental Research. Yeah, let's give an applause to him. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Dong-won Lee. I'm a Director of Environmental Satellite Center of Korea. ESC for short. Let me start my presentation. My presentation title is Monitoring Air Quality and Climate Change of Asia Using GEMS. GEMS is short for the Geostationary Environmental Monitoring Spectrometer, which means jewel, and this is the first of its kind in the world. There are 4 topics. First is outline of GEMS. Second is current GEMS monitoring status of air quality and climate change in Asia. And third is application of GEMS and technical development for observation equipment. Fourth is future plan. Outline of GEMS. GEMS was developed based on Article 3.2 of Air Quality Conservation Act of Korea. The GEMS was launched on 19 February 2020 on board the GK2B satellite from Guyana Space Center located in French Guiana of South America. GK2B means Geostationary Korea Multipurpose Satellite. GK2B has 2 satellite payload. One is a marine sensor, and the other is GEMS, the environmental sensor. GEMS can observe from Mongolia to Indonesia vertically, Japan to India horizontally. It can observe the area about 8 times a day on average. GEMS need sunlight to monitor. That's why its field of regard becomes broader in the afternoon than in the morning. The principle of measurement, GEMS observe the air pollutant based on hyperspectral technique. Each spectral range is from 300 to 500 nanometer in the ultraviolet and visible ray. These thousands of spectral narrowband, we can retrieve air pollutant relatively and accurately. Main targeted air pollutant of GEMS are aerosol, particulate matter, nitrogen dioxide, sulfur dioxide, ozone, and formaldehyde, and so on. These pollutants are also associated with climate change. Hyperspectral satellites observe the thousands of wavelengths, so GEMS can secure more accurate signal. But hyperspectral satellites produce huge data and also huge cost to be developed. On the other hand, other satellites monitor a certain range of wavelengths divided into 10 narrowband. We can research air quality and climate change and conduct interdisciplinary study with GEMS observation data. GEMS can observe a precursor of ozone and particulate matter. This slide shows the timeline of GEMS project. our environmental satellite center activities. GEMS project has been carried out since 2008 year. It's been more than over 10 years now. Environmental Satellite Center handed over GEMS operational light from the Korea Aerospace Research Institute after the GEMS orbit test. Environmental Satellite Center has released the validated GEMS data since March 2021 through the second International Air Quality Campaign. This campaign is related with the Course AQ. Now we have carried out a subsequent GEMS project since last year. GEMS is a geostationary satellite. It can be carried out each observation emission 6 to 10 times a day by season. While this low Earth orbit does that only one time a day, GEMS spatial resolution is also as good as that of a LEO satellite. This slide shows the religion plan of observation image and the data of GEMS. GEMS observed totally about 21 items. We released 14 level 2 products and 3 level 4 products last year. AOD, NO2, and ultraviolet visible ray, aerosol index, aerosol effective height, tropospheric ozone, stratospheric ozone, cloud radiance fraction, UV plant response rate, DNA damage index, vitamin D production index are level 2 product. And aerosol flow rate, estimated PM 2.5 and PM 10 surface concentration are level 4 products. Other level 2 products, such as formaldehyde and glyoxal, has been released since June this year. The remaining level 2 and level 4 products will be opened by this year. GEMS data is stored in a form of NC file. Some of the NC files have been released since June this year, and the rest of them will be in public by the end of this year. Algorithm update. Yeah, we have been worked on improving algorithm accuracy and for a long time. When we didn't have produced GEMS data yet, we used simulation data and other satellite data from OMI and TROPOS-OMI instead to develop an algorithm that can convert GEMS data into image. During GEMS in-orbit test period, we focused on improving the accuracy of our algorithm using real GEMS data. With the initial GEMS image data, we're starting to find and address that technical issue. Currently, we have a focus on optimizing GEMS algorithm. This is a GEMS observation image. There are several levels of GEMS product, such as level 0, level 1, 1A, and level 1B, and level 2, level 3, level 4. Level 1 data is just analog signal from observed GEMS. Level 1A is radiometric collected data. Level 1B is geometric collected data. Level 3 is averaged data. Level 4 is high value added products combined with the other satellite data and modeling data and so on. Level 0 to level 1B algorithms were developed by Ball Aerospace and Technologies and Korea Aerospace Research Institute, KARI. Using level 0 data set, our environmental satellite center generates normal products such as AOD, SO2, NO2, and ozone, and so on. Also, we generated value-added product. You can show light of a presentation slide, such as aerosol mass flow rate and estimated surface concentration of a particle matter. We can use the GEMS to detect air pollutant from wildfires and volcanoes, and to monitor and where they are moving into. The figure you see now result of analysis of various cases of high concentration of air pollutant recently observed from GEMS, such as volcanoes, wildfires, and yellow dust. In particular, the low light figure shows the result of analyzing long-term change in nitrogen dioxide concentration in the lattices associated with COVID-19. This is a presentation application of GEMS and technical development. As a flying technology in the air quality field, GEMS can be used to monitor air pollutant in Asia 8 times a day on average. Environmental Satellite Center produces image, light one on the light, using the observation radiance from the GEMS. GEMS is used to improve the accuracy of air quality forecast. Particulate matter and ozone level are forecast 4 times a day in Korea. GEMS data are provided to air quality forecasting center and utilized after validated through the ground and airborne observations. GEMS can be used to monitor evaluated of a long-range transported air pollutant. We can detect high concentration event and then calculate mass flux for aerosol. Sulfur dioxide flux will be released by end of this year, like this type. GEMS observes the aerosol from the bottom to top of an atmosphere, which holds scientific importance itself. But, however, in order to protect the health of people in a holistic manner, we still need ground level concentration data from the area including mountain and ocean where in-situ measurements are not established. We can convert observed GEMS aerosol data into ground level concentration, particulate concentration. Using GEMS NO2 data, we will develop and release ground level estimated NO2 concentration within this year. Air pollutant emission data is critical to assess policy for air quality improvement through the air quality modeling technique. But in Korea, we will still use 3 years ago data for that. With the GEMS data, we can speed up estimated emission amount of a previous year. The emission amount are estimated using inverse modeling technique. GEMS monitor air pollutant concentration by measuring the amount of radiance, which means that GEMS can do each job only during the daytime. To make a further development, now we are working on making nighttime image of GEMS. If GEMS data and Advanced Meteorological Information Satellite, AMI in Korea, in similar wavelength band machine learned together, it is possible to create GEMS data, RGB nighttime data image. Furthermore, we can produce 30-minute interval data with a better temporal resolution, which is considering a big improvement because daytime images are produced with a 1 hour interval. Volcanic eruption and large-scale wildfire bring about enormous air pollutant inevitably. To respond to this, now we are developing a technique that can automatically detect and track the path of the pollutant from volcanic eruption and wildfire using GEMS data and various information. In particular, as shown in the figure on the right, we plan to detect wildfire smoke by calculating the force color composite in the UV wavelength band. GEMS hyperspectral technique enables us to retrieve other atmospheric pollutant that we haven't observed yet. So we are now attempted to retrieve BRO, H2O, and HONO as a normal product. This product is a very important air pollutant precursor. This kind of material is rolled as a precursor to ozone and particulate matter. Using monthly mean data set, we can retrieve a spatial difference between weekdays and weekends. These results support air pollution control policy. Heavy clouds have always restricted GEMS performance and create a blind spot in observation. However, when we utilize GEMS average data, blind spot can be reduced, which gives us more chance to analyze how much pollutant increased and decreased at a certain duration of time. We are conducting research to create more meaningful data using various environmental big data along with the GEMS data. From the analyzed result, we will be able to identify hotspot area and factors influencing the time series change. With the GEMS data, we can analyze long-term trend of air pollutant concentration by regions. As applying this skill to climate action, we can also monitor trend of climate change inducing substance by each country and region. Climate change and air quality are very closely related. We can gain the information from advanced meteorological instrument satellite and geostationary ozone color image of it's called GOSI of Korea. We have a very big advantage. We have 3 geostationary satellites have environmental, meteorological, and ocean. And also we can have a greenhouse gas information from other satellites. We can analyze interaction between the air quality and climate change. Ozone is a secondary air pollutant resulted from the reaction between nitrogen dioxide, NOx, and VOCs. Theoretically, it is well known that VOC has a great responsibility for creating ozone in large cities. But at the earliest possible sighting, if we can prove this with GEMS data, we can actually do something about reducing VOC in the large cities accordingly. Therefore, we can also support ozone reduction policy. For yellow color region, reducing emitted VOC is effective to decrease ozone. Ozone reduction is not easy, but we are looking forward to finding some clue to solve this issue. We are looking forward to a way to utilize GEMS in the climate change field. such as calculating the radiance pulsing of air pollutant. In particular, we are planning to estimate greenhouse gas concentration from the correlationship between retrieved NO2 and CO2 from GEMS and the greenhouse gas observation satellite, respectively. The United States and Europe are also developing the geostationary environment satellite. With these two satellites and the GEMS, we will establish a 3 geostationary environment satellite monitoring system that can observe the entire northern hemisphere. We are carrying out various activities to improve international cooperation. Our center has participated to COS ACVC since 2018, COSPA, UN Corpus, Tour, and so on. Also, we have signed a MOU with various organizations such as UMESET and NASA. Also, we are working with about 20 international validation team, institutes such as KMNI, DLR, ESA, ESA, and so on. Our Environmental Center and UNESCO have worked together to establish a GEMS joint platform for ASEAN countries since 2020. We can verify GEMS data from the ground remote observation instrument called Pandora. Also, we are planning to build a platform to share the GEMS data and and promote international cooperation to improve air quality in Asia. Pandora instrument has already set up in Mongolia, Thailand, and we are continuing to this project. I think it is possible expanded this network. We will build a Pandora ASEAN network, or PAN, P-A-N, for short, within this year to establish cooperative system to correspond to the air pollutant and climate change in the region. Also, ASEAN Remote Sensing Research Center established in June 2021 under our center will perform the crucial role in this regard. In addition, GEMS and Pandora training program was taken place for policymakers and researchers in Pandora network region for a month, June to July this year. Now we provide 19 satellite observation and value-added images through our website. In near future, we will provide high-resolution images for especially ASEAN country, image and data. Our Environmental Satellite Center is developing not only satellite algorithm, but also instruments such as Pandora, aircraft mountable GEMS, and low-price NO2 and ozone zonde, which can verify GEMS data. This instrument can improve reliability of GEMS data, and especially hardware and data processing algorithm of Pandora will be replaced with Korean technology. We will call the K-Pandora. For analysis and visualization of GEMS data, we are developing GEMS analysis and application tool. The GEMS application tool will be released to the public during the first half of 2023. Future plan. We will develop the 5 cluster microsatellites to observe the greenhouse gas, and they will be launched in 2027. In addition, we are planning to launch next geostationary environment satellite in 2030 to replace the current GEMS. And these new GEMS can measure greenhouse gas and air pollutant simultaneously. To proceed subsequent GEMS project, we need strong support from many countries and in our inner ministry. Yeah. Thank you very much. I finish this my presentation.
Thank you. Please give a big hand to Itaewon Director again. Thank you. Yeah. From now on, we will have a question and answer session. If you have any question, please hands up. We will deliver a microphone to you. Yeah. Please hands up.
Yes, good morning. My name is Federico Cuellar. I'm the ambassador of the Dominican Republic, and as you can imagine, I am sure I speak for many ambassadors here who are outside of the scope of attention of your satellite. And at least in my case, I'm drooling with envy because of this very detailed data you are able to get on a real-time basis with very high resolution. What can be done for us to be part of this fantastic endeavor and get comparable data for our own countries if we were to set up a cooperation program with your agency? Thank you.
예, 답변드리겠습니다.
I'll answer.
지금 말씀 저희는 그 데이터 팔러시에 있어서는 굉장히 오픈되어 있습니다.
In terms of our data policy, we are very open.
그렇기 때문에 we have an open policy to data sharing. So if you need to our data and image, and ask to our center, we will send the SFTP method and hard disk method, hard disk copy method. That's enough answer? 우리나라 한국말로 하겠습니다. 네.
I will deliver my answer in
시스템을 가질 수 있습니다.
Korean. So Dominica could set up a system similar to this. However, in order to do so, the Republic of Dominica can also set up a system like ours. However, for you to do so, you would have to first develop optical observation technology, and I'm sure you do have that knowledge. And in terms of the system, there has to be an understanding of what satellites are in orbit, and you need to plan for quite a long time to launch these satellites. For our GEMS, we had preparation of 10 years. So we made preparations for the past 10 years. It was a long-term project, and we had to accumulate science and technology and also aerospace technology in order to launch such a satellite. If you have those plans, since we have made preparations for 10 years and we have launched the satellite recently, and now we are releasing the data, and we are making data sets and also creating products from the data. And we are also trying to launch a subsequent satellite. And I think our Environmental Satellite Center, because of this vast experience, can provide you with support if you need such support.
네. Thank you. Is there any questionnaire in here?
Thank you very much, Dr. Lee, for your very useful presentation. Just my question is about the program in the afternoon of today. So if any delegation members will visit Incheon, the Environmental Satellite Center this afternoon, actually they can see all the data and nice, scientific photos. What they can see in this afternoon, can you a little bit more elaborate about this afternoon's program? Thank you.
Thank you very much for the question. Now, once you visit us at ESC, we will explain to you our buildings, and also on the rooftop, we have the satellite reception antenna, and we will also show you the control center where the data and information are processed. From there, we generate scientific data, and so you will be able to have a peek on them as well. Moreover, I would like to explain to you this afternoon how we plan to collaborate with Asian countries. So on top of the presentation delivered just now, we'll be elaborating more on that this afternoon.
If there's no questionnaire or anybody? Yeah. If there's no questionnaire, session will be over. So please give a big hand to Lee Dong-won Director. Thank you. Yeah. We will take a rest about 3 minutes. After a break time, we will start the session 2 at 11:10, and it will last 35 minutes. Take your time, and we meet again. Thank you. Yeah, pay attention, please. We will take a rest about 7 minutes, and break time. We will start the session 2 at 11:15. Yeah, thank you. Attention please, we are going to start the session 2, so please come inside and take your seats. Thank you. After a few minutes, we're going to start the session 2, so please come inside and take your seats. Session 2 topic is how science can support the policy and technology cooperation addressing the issue. Thank you. Attention please, we will start the session 2 in 1 to 2 minutes. So please come inside and take your seat. Thank you. Pay attention, please. Session 2 will begin soon. So please take your seats and come inside. Everybody, we will start the session 2 from now on. Session 2 topic is how science can support the policy and technology cooperation addressing the issue. First panelist is Mushtaq Mahad Memo. Please come up to the stage. Let's give an applause to him. He is a regional coordinator for chemicals and pollution sub-program in the Pacific Regional Office as a UNEP.
Good morning, Excellencies. And it's really nice because as now we have an International Clean Air Day every year, and also because I'm based in Bangkok with the regional office for UNEP, and we are organizing commemorate Clean Air Day there. And luckily the time difference, so we finish 1:30 here and we go online to Bangkok also. So that's very interesting. And that also reminds of this session about the transboundary. As we are talking not about our human transboundary movement or online, but this is about air pollution issues which are getting really, really challenging. But then this session is that how science can support the policy and technology cooperation. And again, to my understanding, that technology and policy cooperation, we are also talking about transboundary cooperation, not the national cooperation. And also the science, again, we are talking about so basically we are talking about the regional cooperation and international cooperation on the science leading to the regional policies, international policies, and technology transfer and support to address the transboundary air pollution. So this session, as I'm also the facilitator, but I have a first presentation, and then we have our esteemed presenters, James H. Crawford and Dr. Eric Zusman and Professor Narisarwa Thongbong Chow. So we will go there. First, let me start my presentation, and then I will invite our esteemed presenters or speakers to talk about this. So quickly, because of time, we want to save the time also for the Q&A or the discussion. So I will just have a very fast run over this presentation just to bring the ideas on the table. So as you can see that Asia and Pacific, 92% of Asia and the Pacific population, about 44 billion people, are exposed to the levels of air pollution. And as you may also know, UN has just had an agreement on the environmental right, that even the clean air is a basic human right. So looking at that, and looking at the out of the 7 million premature deaths, 5 million are in Asia-Pacific region. Then looking at the GDP, that Asia-Pacific contributes only more than 30% to the world GDP, while it consumes 50% of the natural resources of the world. So inefficiencies in the system. And that's where, whenever we talk about pollution, pollution is mainly about the inefficiencies, whether it be in the productions of the anything, energy, transport, and so on, or whether it be the consumption or utility of transport, housing, and so on. So basically, these inefficiencies. And all this, like most of transport, energy, housing, everything is also part of the global trade, regional trade, imports and exports, and so on. So either in the parts, either in the fuel or raw materials, and so forth. So we have to look in that context to see that as the middle income is growing very fast. That's why the demand is increasing, whether it be on the energy, whether it be on transport, whether it be on housing, and so on, whether it be on the food, agriculture, and so forth. So this demand is pushing a lot of the production, but as I say, with inefficiencies, and also the consumption with a lot of wastage. And that's where the challenge comes in. And as we see that how this demand has increased rapidly over the years. And then when we talk about the air pollution in specific, we look on the actions being taken. And though we have seen that in industrial pollution, if you look on the 1960s, 1970s, Asia Pacific, or specifically this part, Japan, Korea, and so on, having a lot of like challenges, and they overcome in a great way. And that industrial air pollution has subsidized in many countries, but still, when we talk about the SMEs, we talk about the 70–80% of many developing countries, air pollution is still their major challenge. Then transport is another challenge. And as also we are moving to the electric vehicles, we, instead of the tailpipe, we are now getting the tires, like pollution from the braking and so on, and again the microplastics and so on in the air and so forth. Then waste management. Unfortunately, though I have been working in the waste management for last 2 decades, or even in the UNEP, I developed whole program, and still the situation in many countries remains same in the waste collection, waste management. There's a lot of open burning, open dumping, marine pollution, you name it, like waste management. It's really, really a major challenge in the region. And household pollution, again, as we see that indoor pollution is affecting a lot. And that's where we see the challenges with the energy sources. We see the challenges in the communities, like suppose in Pakistan, my country, the flooding, how the people are moving and how they are cooking now. It's really totally a different like phenomena to look on the household. Agriculture, slash and burn is a very common, despite of a lot of efforts and so on, in most of the countries, and that has created a lot of even the bigger pollution issues like haze, like in India you can see, and then with this visibility issues, also the accidents. So it's not only direct air pollution impact, but air pollution creating the visibility issues, creating the road accidents and so on. And then air quality management strategies. Many countries are really speeding up on the air quality roadmaps and so on, but it's still to be seen how they are going to be implemented, as we have seen in different environmental strategies and so on. Air quality standards is another challenge that countries are coming together, is a homogeneous, and as we in SCAP 29 November to 2nd December, Environment and Development Committee 7th will take up this, and also to look into the regional mechanisms, is focusing also on the air quality standards. We have to see a lot. So from this session, like data to policy, science to policy, as you might have heard about the ENET, that is the intergovernmental process in Asia Pacific, and that is started with a focus on the acid deposition in East Asia. But then now in the last intergovernmental session, they have opened up to the other air pollutants and so on to be also tackled there. And with this ENET, we produce, UNEP is basically acting as the secretariat for that. So we are like helping the countries to come up with a proper science of the acid deposition and so on. And there was quite a good, also on the one hand, UNEP helped a lot on the ozone side, and that really got quite a good progress, and same with the acid deposition. And that's why we are now opening up for the other pollutants to be tackle through intergovernmental processes and so on, as this issue is also a transboundary, and solutions also are the transboundary. And as I mentioned, that suppose agriculture this open burning is becoming a major challenge. So we are also trying to look on that this is a resource. How the 140 billion tons of biomass can be really captured and converted into a resource to support the clean energy and to reduce air pollution rather than affecting the air pollution by just burning it and so on. Sorry. So one of the ideas, because we have been also, I'm working on the circular economy over the years, that we look on that, as I say, inefficiencies in the system, whether we need to 1 mile to travel. 1 mile to travel in what way? How much it will contribute to the air pollution? How we change transport mode? How we change to the active transport, for example? How we create that transport mode, like producing the equipment and everything, the fuel for that, and so on. So if we look on this whole, we try to close the loop as local as possible and reduce the pollution or the wastage in the system. And that's where the UNEP in 2010 came with this decoupling, means you have economic growth, but that can, instead of affecting the environment, should support the environmental change, challenges. For example, in the Republic of Korea or in Japan, you have seen that they had major challenges, but then with the economic growth, they have tackled quite a good way and so on. So this roadmap of the Asia Pacific is starting from the pollution dilution to coming to the circular economy is a key for that, to look into that. So for this, governments, businesses, and the citizens, they have to work together with all the roles and strengths, that whether be the regulatory frameworks by the government, or the financial investments by the private sector, or the willingness to pay as per the polluter pay principle, or the partnerships according to the extended producer responsibility and so on, by the citizens to work together for that one. And as last year with this CAP, UNCTAD, and UNEP, they came with this climate smart trade and investments. We can also look about that, because anyway, most of the climate interventions are related with the air pollution as a co-benefit, but we can really look on the air pollution smart trade and investments, and that will help a lot on the bilateral and regional trade agreements to see, because there's embedded air pollution in everything, so we have to see how we can address that. And for this, we have circular economy in Asia and the Pacific. We work with the cities, as cities are the main focus with the circular cities, and also we try to engage the youth for innovations, digital technologies, startups. So this is circularity and youth. So thank you very much for bearing with me. And now let's move first to our presentations, then we come back. So I take now this opportunity to request Dr. James H. Crawford, research scientist at NASA. So Dr. Crawford, floor is yours, please.
Thank you. Let's give an applause for him. Yeah. James Crawford, yeah, come up, please come up to the stage. We will link to you online. Yeah.
Tell me when you're ready.
Yeah. Are you ready?
Okay. I'm here in Manchester for the meeting of the International Global Atmospheric Chemistry Project. It's a place where the science community will be talking at length all over the next week about air quality and the science of air pollution. So it's very relevant that I'm able to meet with you here virtually to talk a little bit about that before I get with my colleagues next week. My approach in the very short time that I have is going to be philosophical, because I think it's important to ask the question of how does science contribute. And an important part of this is that while emissions reductions are always a positive thing, the way that air quality responds to those emissions changes is not always straightforward. And so trying to help governments and the public understand how policies are manifested in changes in air quality and how the changes that are seen are relatable back to the policies were put in place. It's really important for us to communicate the value of these policies. I'm showing you here at a very high level what I think of as the most fundamental challenge that we have from the science community, and that is to reconcile the view of air quality from space with what is observed on the ground. And so Mr. Lee gave a very exciting presentation about the capabilities of GEMS and the ways that it can observe Asia in ways that are unprecedented. And on the left, I just give you a quick example of an image from their website on the ability to browse GEMS satellite observations. But on the right, I also provide a patchwork of all of the monitoring that's going on across Asia within the GEMS field of view. And it's very impressive the amount of expansion and proliferation of monitoring that's been taking place in Asia. And each one of these perspectives is absolutely critical to being successful in terms of addressing air quality issues. But they're fundamentally different in the way they look at the problem. On the left, with the GEMS satellite observations, you're looking at the total amount of pollutants between the top of the atmosphere all the way to the surface. Whereas in these monitoring locations, you're looking purely at ground level impacts, what's present where people live and breathe at the surface. Each of these views, I will want to convince you, is extremely important, but fundamentally different. And trying to understand how they work together is a very important part of what we're trying to do as a science community. I want to emphasize to you at a high level the need for an integrated observing strategy to bridge between satellite and ground measurements, and most importantly, to improve air quality models. Minister Kim this morning talked about the Pan-Asian Partnership for Geospatial Air Pollution Information, and through that, Korea is providing an extremely important piece of information with the GEMS satellite information, but also propagating Pandora spectrometers throughout Asia so that countries can begin to validate the GEMS data for themselves, to begin to interpret it in a way that they understand the quality of the satellite information and how it relates to what's happening on the ground in their location. You also see listed here many other satellites that can contribute to what's going on in terms of air quality, not only in Asia, but around the globe. And so taking advantage of the space-based view is a fundamental part of trying to expand what we can see, because we understand that on the ground, you can only measure air quality at very specific locations on the ground. How do we understand what's happening in between? How do we understand the transport that's happening between countries where we don't have ground monitors? And so trying to connect these two views with each other is the fundamental challenge. I want to emphasize also that these views in terms of monitoring on the ground and space-based measurements are covering some of the most fundamentally important observations: aerosol optical depth for particulate matter, NO2 and formaldehyde for precursors of ozone, SO2. These are also precursors for those fine particles, but those are very basic measurements. We also need measurements of the complexity of what's happening. And so we find that aircraft are often a very important way to do that. We did measurements in Korea in 2016 as part of the Korea-United States Air Quality Field Study. And we also, as part of the Pan-Asian Partnership, are discussing expanded airborne measurements across as many countries as possible in the Asian region. And what you can do with that is important because it allows you to use remote sensing to perform measurements that are similar to the satellite at a higher resolution. But even more importantly, it allows you to take detailed in situ observations of the atmosphere. So while you can measure between 5 and 10 compounds from space, there are literally 100+ compounds and constituents in the atmosphere that play a fundamental role in what's happening with air quality. For instance, when you look at aerosol optical depth from space and convert that to a PM 2.5, you're still missing the piece of information on how did that PM 2.5 come to be. It's mainly a secondary pollutant, so the condensation of gases into particulate matter drives that. And so understanding how industrial sources, energy generation sources, agricultural sources, and other types of transportation sources all contribute to the PM 2.5. And so these short-term airborne campaigns become a very important way of understanding how those sources are coming together and affecting the lower atmosphere, and how that connects the satellite view, which is the column view, the total amount, versus what's on the ground. So you see here that satellite validation is important and detailed mapping of air quality. Emissions evaluation and model improvement is an important aspect of what we do as scientists, and improving understanding through process studies. I have the models off here to the side for a very important reason, and I want to remind the audience that while we can always observe air quality in great detail through these three perspectives, we can't observe the future. It's really only with a model that we can predict the likely outcomes of policies and how air quality will improve. And so an important part of what we do with these observations is we test models in terms of their ability to predict today's air quality. And the better those models become at predicting today, the more trustworthy they become in terms of predicting how tomorrow will respond to air quality policies and decisions in terms of emissions reductions. One thing I want to try to finish up with is to show you how these three perspectives matter so much. And what I'm showing you here is from that Chorus AQ field study, some information for NO2. It's only one constituent. I don't have time to go into great depth, but I want you to see here two curves. And these are from that field study, the median and interquartile statistics for what was happening at the Olympic Park site in Seoul. And so in red, you see the surface NO2 observations. You see very high values in the morning, and then a decrease throughout the day to a low value in the afternoon. In terms of the Pandora spectrometer, which is what would be analogous to a satellite view, you see something very different. You see an increase through the morning, and then while things are decreasing, you see sustained high levels throughout the afternoon. And what you're seeing here is that at the ground level, the pollution that's being introduced into the atmosphere is being mixed throughout the atmosphere as the day commences, and the level over which things are mixed above the surface increases. But the total emissions are increasing over time, and so if you look at the aircraft data, you can see why this is happening. So in blue, you see the morning information as the aircraft descends over the Olympic Park site. You see very high levels of NO2 near the surface, and you see all of the pollution is constrained to the lowest 500 meters. But as the surface heats and emissions continue throughout the day, in midday and afternoon, in the orange and the green, you see that the pollution is mixed to higher and higher levels, almost 2 kilometers above the surface. The satellite can see this. So the satellite sees ever increasing amounts of NO2, but at the surface, you can see from the aircraft as well that the amount of NO2 is decreasing in time. This difference is very important to understand, and it's different from location to location. But most importantly, what we see is that the ground level is extremely important to measure exposure. What are people breathing and experiencing? And the satellite is extremely important to measure the emissions. What is the total amount of pollution that's being entered into the atmosphere for both local impact and transport to other locations? My last slide very quickly is to emphasize a second molecule, formaldehyde. So NO2 and formaldehyde are important for both the ozone pollution that occurs in Asia, as well as the formation of secondary aerosol, PM2.5. You see that the formaldehyde vertical distributions look very different than what you saw for NO2 in the previous slide. And in this case, it's because the formaldehyde is a chemical outcome. Instead of being emitted directly into the atmosphere, is coming from the breakdown of hydrocarbons in the location, in this case, in the Seoul location. And so here you see that it's not the mixing that's important, but it's the increased volume over which the oxidation of hydrocarbons is happening. So you don't see the decrease near the surface, but you see ever increasing levels of formaldehyde in the lower atmosphere, which are contributing to the ozone that's being felt at the surface. And so with those examples, I hope I give you a quick look at how scientists are looking at the connection between satellite observations, ground observations, and the important short-term aircraft observations to make our understanding of how our policies are affecting air quality better and make our decisions about what to do in the future better. So with that, I'll stop and move on to the next presenter. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your presenting. Next panelist, Eric Jesman. He is Senior Policy Researcher of Institute for Global Environmental Strategy in Japan. He will also be connected to online. Please take a look. Hello?
Hello. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yeah, I heard.
Thank you very much. Okay, so my name is Eric Zussman, and as mentioned, I work at the Institute for Global Environmental Strategies in Hayama, Japan. I'll talk a little bit about regional cooperation on air pollution in Asia and the Pacific, and try to emphasize how we can strengthen the science policy interface. In that connection, I want to make some quick comments on an initiative that has very strong support from colleagues at SCAP as well as from colleagues in the Korean government, known as NECAP or NEASPEC. And I want to underline that I think that one of the key elements of this initiative is it can help us change the narrative from blame casting on air pollution to benefit sharing, especially when we think about the multiple benefits that colleague Mushtaq and others have highlighted. Then I want to make 3 comments related to NEASPEC and NECAP. All of them, I think that will help us shift this narrative and also strengthen the science policy interface. And then a few closing thoughts. So without further ado, this NEASPEC program I think is very positive, and I'm really glad to see it moving forward. You can see it has a very nice set of work plans and work programs. And in particular, there's several different work programs that have an emphasis on what I would call evidence-based or science-based policy. And I think many of these programs will help strengthen this interface between science and policy, but also within the region, more generally, the Northeast Asian region more generally. And so I hope to see greater emphasis not only on these different elements, but also making sure that these elements are coherent and well aligned with each other as we move forward in the implementation of this program. The other thing I want to highlight is as we try to make stronger connections between these different elements, one of the things that I've experienced personally and was also highlighted in our colleague Mushtaq's presentation is the development of an assessment report, a regional assessment report, which helped us identify 25 different solutions, which would help bring air quality within the Asian region much closer to 20, this is for PM 2.5, 20 micrograms per cubic meter by 2030. Now, the identification of those 25 solutions and the research on the implementation of those solutions has gone on to help frame some of the work, for instance, under this APCAP program that was mentioned previously, and is also being used now, I think, in many governments to think about what types of technologies and social changes, including some of the shifts to circular economy, would be useful to help reduce air pollution and achieve other co-benefits for climate change, for instance. I think this type of assessment report was important for not only the evidence it helped produce, but also the community of experts that it helped create. We sometimes call this an epistemic community. So I think one of the things that would like to see moving forward as we implement NEACAP and NEASPEC is the emphasis on a sub-regional Northeast Asia assessment report. We've had a lot of good discussions at my institute, IGIS, with colleagues in the Korean Environment Institute, in Korea, obviously, the Policy Research Center for Environment and Economy in China, Beijing Normal University, as well as several international institutes like IASA, SEI, OECD. And this could focus on identifying priority solutions at the sub-regional level. Kindly note, we're developing also a sub-regional report for Southeast Asia as well. It could summarize implementation experiences and then also highlight opportunities for collaboration, especially in strengthening governance structures. And having some players outside of the region, I think, is important to have some honest brokers. So hence the emphasis, for instance, on colleagues from IASA, SEI, what have you. The other thing is I think would be useful is a platform for experience sharing. And I think as SCAP is working on this regional modality, this is also part of their plans. There are many different useful experiences within the region that could be shared. Some of them are best practices. Some of them, I think, also require some understanding of some of the challenges to implementation. So good practices are useful, but challenges might be even more informative. I just highlight a few here. Japan's diesel initiative and some of its energy efficiency plans. Some of the work that Korea has done in the power sector renewables, while not necessarily focused directly on air pollution, has good co-benefits for air quality. We also have a lot of good emphasis on co-control, or in Chinese, 协同控制, the co-control between air pollution and climate change in China, and also China's PM 2.5 control strategies. And one of the other interesting examples is in the case of Mongolia. They've made a very strong emphasis on putting links between air pollution and broader development needs. And if you look at Mongolia's what they call their voluntary national review, this is very strongly emphasized. I think this would also be a good place to underline the importance of getting air pollution more firmly set within the SDGs discussion. The last thing I'd like to emphasize is a way for moving forward some of the plans of NECAP and NEASPEC, and more generally for strengthening regional cooperation, is perhaps something along the lines of a clean air solutions camp, a training program, if you will. I think as Jim highlighted previously in the presentation before mine, there's a lot of nuance that's required to understand how to move forward from science to policy. And working with young researchers at an early stage and building bridges, I think, will be very useful. The structure of camp could have assessment modeling and solution identification, policy design and implementation, and then sharing some of the results with officials. And it also could contribute to some of the ideas shared previously, such as the sub-regional solutions report. So those are some of my quick comments. I hope that they're well received, and I look forward to working with you to strengthen science policy interface within the region.
Thank you. Thank you for expressing your opinion. And I will introduce last panelist in session 2, Narsa Thongbon Chu. She is a lecturer, Department of Chemical Engineering in Bangkok, Thailand. She also will be connected to online. Please take a look.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah, I heard that.
Okay, actually, like you already listened to Eric and also like Jim about like some kind of policy. So I would like to share my perspective that how science can support the policy in terms of like Southeast Asian scientists. Okay, so I share experience about 2 projects for 7C and also the project that I have done with Chinese. Okay, so for Southeast Asia, you know, like Asian haze is very important. So I show you what happened, you know, in Thailand news about Indonesian forest fire and also fire in Thailand and in Australia and smoke from Indonesia that cover southern part of Thailand. I have a chance to go travel around the country, and you know, I talk with, you know, like for the taxi driver, you know, they have some doubt. They said the smoke, you know, might come from natural, and I think, you know, I would like to support that, you know, like the cooperation for the scientists is really important because we show the like science evidence. Okay, and also like give some recommendation for policymaker. So this one I capture from the 7C project that in Southeast Asia we have a problem with forest fire in northern part in one season and like certain part in another season. Okay, so you know, like if you see from here, you know, like this is like the satellite image from Tom aerosol. You can see from the wind pattern, you know, the wind can flow from northern part of Southeast Asia in Myanmar, Thailand, Laos, and can travel, you know, and affected, you know, like Taiwan and Philippines as well. Okay, so this one is show you that, you know, like the transboundary haze affected, you know, like the cloud water in Taiwan. You can see the pH, you know, like of the water, it go down to around 7.8 and even go down to 3.5. Okay. And, you know, like this one is a field campaign that happened in Southeast Asian before. Is because Southeast 7C project. Okay. So, you know, like they do some kind of sampling. Okay. The air pollutant along the pathway in Chiang Mai, Thailand, in Doi Ang Khang, also in Luang Nam Thai in Laos, and also Son Lai in Vietnam to see what happened. Okay, this is like a list of, you know, like a measurement that they have done, you know, like in Thailand, Laos, and Vietnam. Okay, and this one is the result, you know, from the international collaboration, you know, about transboundary haze. And this one shows us, you know, like what happened, you know, when dry air, it happened, and we have, you know, forest fire here, and it travel, okay, to, affected Taiwan and other country, okay. So this one show you the location in northern of Thailand. And, the location that, like we have the location, it close to Myanmar border, okay. And this is like some activity, in the northern part of Thailand, there are a lot of open burning, okay. So, based on, this kind of international collaboration, so they can identify, so what happened, we found out that, down from the taxi driver that it kind of natural, it's not true. Based on this one, we can find out that it based on, that they happen because of biomass burning. So we can inform this one, to policy maker and to do something to help the problem for his. And also I would like to share another project, that we have done, okay, with China, about the role of atmospheric aerosol on climate change for direct and indirect effect. So this one is another example of, like international collaboration that, with work, we can understand what happened, because right now, in Thailand, we have experience on climate extreme. We have a lot of, like rain and also flooding, so the study for international collaboration is very important. So for this one, like we got the funding from Thailand and China government to study about, like the effect of aerosol on climate change. Okay, so this one is still ongoing project that, we gonna make, some kind of a conclusion and summary, and we gonna pass this kind of information to policymaker. This one is unit of this kind of research about emission observation, radiative forcing feedback, and how it linked to aerosol and cloud and monsoon. Okay, this is like about emission, and that we have done in northern part of Thailand. Okay, and this one in China. And we also do some kind of modeling, okay, to do some kind of simulation. Okay, so this one the result from the observation. Okay, so that one is, like the past and, ongoing project. And we also have joined the project with Jim as well, So we have the collaboration we call airborne and satellite investigation of Asian air quality, or Asia AQ. And, like if you see from the right-hand side, this is the location in pollution control department of Thailand. So we install Pandora, in the building. And on the left-hand side, also this one med station that, like we do some kind of, like inter-comparison with Pandora. So that's all, that, I share the experience for as a scientist that, like international collaboration is really important, for like transboundary heads, because it helps scientists, to understand, and we can send this message to local people and also policymakers. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. From now on, we will have a discussion time. Yeah. If you come up with a debate topic, just start to express your opinion.
Yeah. So thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Crawford, Dr. Eric, and Dr. Nesra. And any questions from the floor, please? Any suggestions, any inputs? No. And any questions from our esteemed panelists to each other? Okay, Eric, your hand is up. Please.
Yeah, thanks so much, Mushtaq. Actually, I have a question for both Nagasara and Jim. And the question is really about their experiences in trying to communicate the science to policymakers. What are some of the tips or some of the suggestions you might have to try to help policymakers understand the magnitude of the problem and how we can arrive at solutions?
Jim. Okay.
You want me to go first? No,
Yeah.
you go, Narissa.
Yes.
Okay, Narissa, you can go first, please, and then Dr. Crawford can follow.
Yeah, actually, I and Jim also we also work together, for the next, campaign mission. I have to say that it's quite tough, to go through, but actually, I have to say that we do something on ground, scientists, we talk together, and we come up with some kind of, a tactic or policy, to talk, with policymaker and approach, the scientists in that organization and let them, to talk with the top management. Okay, but I think in this recent day, I think it's much easier than 10 years before, because right now the technology change and they also concerned about the air pollution because they experience about air pollution. A long time ago, when we would like to do some kind of aircraft mission, they doubt about that. Oh, they're going to do some kind of, see our secret. But recently, right, we have a lot of drone and I think they are family. I think in recent day, it should be more easy. I think they understand because the technology had changed. Okay.
Thank you. Dr. Crawford, please.
Just a couple of quick comments from me, and that's that there are really two phases of this. The first phase is, especially when you're working internationally, bringing resources into a country, you have to make sure that you have articulated and essentially convinced the local government that this is beneficial to them. The work we did in Korea, the ministry was fundamental in welcoming us and sort of working through our scientific colleagues at NIER and the universities to sort of demonstrate the measurements we would make and how they would benefit. But there's a second piece that I think is fundamental, and that's public sentiment. If a country doesn't have an active population who is speaking out about air quality issues, it's much more difficult to convince them to take this step toward action. And so the very act of going to a country, working with the local scientists to advance air quality, for instance, in Korea, the news coverage was absolutely phenomenal. And that raises the sort of the visibility of the problem for a short period of time that can carry momentum as you go forward into more important policy decisions. And so, the public has to worry about a lot of things. And so anytime you can create a season of real interest in air quality and a scientific sort of lens through which to understand the complexity of it is always beneficial to the locality wherever you can do a campaign. And so expanding that in Asia is something we're very interested in doing. Thanks for the question.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So I think that's very good suggestions, but the experience we had that online dialogues were not very effective because policymakers have so many other commitments. So it's always good to bring them in the room, and especially science is very hard for understanding. So in person, I think this opening up after COVID as we are here will be more useful for those dialogues. So thank you very much, and let's conclude this session here. Thank you very much.
Can I add one more statement?
Sorry,
if that's okay, because I think Eric will be interested in this. Another thing that we've begun doing, we did it with Chorus AQ, was after the campaign, we returned to Korea a year later to present a report to the local government and to the Ministry of the Press to really not just say, it's one thing to go make the measurements and leave. It's important to follow up and to actually articulate findings and present them at a high level. And so as scientists, we love to write our scientific papers, but possibly more important is that real, sort of low-level, simple messaging of what did we learn when we did these kinds of campaigns, right? And so that's the other piece that I forgot to mention.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Crawford and Dr. Eric and Dr. Narissa. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Session 2 is over. Please give a big hands to all panelists. Thank you. We will take a rest about 5 minutes. After break time, we will start to session 3 at 12:10. Take your time and meet me again. Thank you. pay attention, please. There will be field trip after this session. If you want to go field trip, you have to check on information center at lobby. We're not sure the list who go to the field trip, so please check on the information center if you are into the field trip list or not. Thank you. Attention please, we're going to start the session 3, so please come inside. Thank you. We'll start the session 3, so please come inside and take your seat. And also, there will be field trip after the session. If you want to go field trip, you have to check on information center. Thank you. Session 3 topic is Envisioning a regional modality on air pollution in the Northeast Asia and the Asia Pacific. So we can start now.
Good morning. Thank you, Madam MC. Good morning again, and welcome to the session number 3. I have the pleasure to share this session with 3 distinguished speakers. Kurt Carrigan, who will be speaking in a few minutes. He's the Chief of Sustainable Development, Urban Development for UNESCAP. And Mariana Katunen, who will be joining us. She's leading the work on international regulatory cooperation of OECD from the Regulatory Division of the Public Governance Directorate. And then we have Professor Chol Hee Kim, who is the Director of Institute of Environmental Studies from Busan National University Department of Atmospheric Sciences. This morning we heard a lot of presentations on the science behind air pollution and the scientific collaboration as well as the technological cooperation taking place to address the transboundary issues on air pollution. As we know, air pollution may be caused from local, sub-regional, national, and regional level, but the air pollution doesn't stop at the borders. So in this third session, we are going to focus more on the regional cooperation. How do we strengthen that regional cooperation? How do we foster the regional cooperation? So I will start with a brief presentation, and I know we have some time constraints, so I'm also going to ask our speakers to be brief and keeping 5 minutes presentation so that we give the chance to talk about, have questions from the room as well as some of the questions we have. So in the next slide, do I need to do it from here? So this is a picture that many of us don't want to see, but it happens a lot. During the first year of COVID, we saw a lot of clean air, a lot of blue skies. But then the biggest challenge we have is how do we make sure that we green the recovery and avoid having this kind of situation. Some of the data you have heard from the earlier presentations in terms of how the percentage of people affected by the air pollution, how many people are exposed, and the health risk associated with air pollution. The impact of air pollution is on the death toll is huge, is massive. But then there is also another aspect on the air pollution. So the economic impact of the air pollution is something that we also need to talk about, which is that the number of days people get sick and they are not able to be productive, they are not able to work, they are not able to contribute economically is a massive amount of, it's in terms of billions of dollars. So there are studies being conducted currently, and I think that will be an interesting number to look at as well. So it's a silent killer, but I think the hope that we have when it comes to air pollution is that it's preventable. And in this third session, we are going to not going away from the science aspect of it, but to look at the climate impact aspect of it and how do we address it through climate change. There are different sources of air pollutants that we are experiencing. Not spending too much time on this one, but we can see that if you look at most of the sources of air pollution, greening or decarbonizing our economic activities is going to be crucial. But that decarbonization alone is not enough if the regional cooperation is not picking up and scaling up. So modality for regional cooperation on air pollution in Northeast Asia and Asia Pacific is going to be central into our discussion this morning. So green growth for health and environment is an important topic for GGGI, the Global Green Growth Institute, because when it's come to health and environment and we look at the interaction with air pollution, most of the sources that we are experiencing, whether it's the unsafe use of biomass for cooking, or whether it's the way we produce energy or the transport. So we have a number of key economic activity area where we can target for actions and climate actions, ambitious climate actions to be able to address the air pollution aspect. And this pyramid of effects for air pollution is a reminder of how people are being exposed to and what are the consequences of air pollution. Some of the numbers, not to emphasize too much on it because we heard many of these numbers in earlier presentation. But then one important aspect, if you look at the last bullet point, is that when we look at the green growth aspect as part of the solution, every dollar that we spend in addressing the climate crisis that impact on air pollution will result into $9 to $10 in terms of benefits when it's come to benefits for the population, for the economic activity, for the health, for the environment. So that's an important aspect to keep in mind, that it's preventable, there are solutions, but then by greening, decarbonizing our economy, by greening the recovery, we have an opportunity to leverage on the investments and having massive returns in terms of benefits for health, environment, and productivity. And this is something that we need to keep in mind, that we are looking at the number of deaths, but we also need to think more about how many people are sick, are unable to produce, are unable to work. So it's billions and billions of dollars of economic loss from the society because people are impacted by air pollution and preventable situation. So what are some of the solutions? We will be discussing more on this aspect. Earlier, the question was raised on how do we make sure that science and policymakers are coming together. Awareness raising is important, and I think beyond the policymakers, we also need to think about the general public. The campaign is important, but the campaign needs to also target the young generation. They are going to be the leaders of tomorrow. They are the ones who will be making the decision. They are part of the most affected. So to have them as change agents is important. Awareness raising is important. The technological cooperation is going to be a central piece of the regional cooperation. We have the scientific cooperation, it's taking place, it can expand, but we also need to have more technological cooperation. Research and development is something that is high. The private sector engagement is key. No matter what we do, governments are good as regulators. They are good as, they can be good into overseeing, into controlling, into putting the standards in place. But the level of investment needed to green the recovery, to decarbonize our economies, require the massive investment from the private sector. So that private sector involvement is key. And I would like to present the last slide on an example of how do we get that private sector involvement by going into something very important at the central into the conversation at the policy level as well as private sector, that is powering past coal in Asia. So accelerating the coal transition to clean energy in Asia is something that can be a nice topic for regional cooperation. GGI is working with a number of partners and both government, private sector, academia into implementing the Powering Past Coal Asia initiative in the region. It's the good thing about an initiative like this is that the technology is there. There is a strong interest from private sector. We also know that governments are interested into advancing on this one. But there is also an important factor, which is the economic benefits of transitioning into clean energy, the number of green jobs that can be created, the impact on the environment, the climate target that we can reach in an initiative like this. So it takes into account not only the regulatory and policy frameworks, but also the investments, the creation of green jobs, the capacity building, etc. And it can be replicated. So this is the last slide that I have on this presentation. Before moving into the other presentations, I want the audience to think about these 5 questions before we get the floor to our speakers. They will be sharing their views on these 5 questions, but think about these questions as we get into the Q&A part. The challenges that we are facing when it comes to regional cooperations, and how do we ensure that we have all the stakeholders involved, and then what are the good practices that we have in implementing or putting in place the holistic approach when it comes to transboundary air pollution. So I'll stop here and then invite our first, am I okay to invite them or you want to do that? All right, then I will save us some time and then invite them to go ahead. All right. So I will invite our next speaker, Kurt Carrigan. Let us check for the sound, if you can hear us. You are currently the Chief of Sustainable Urban Development for the Environment and Development Division of the UNESCAP. Thank you very much for joining us, Kurt. You'll be joining us online, so the floor is yours.
Hello?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Now we can hear you. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much, Mohamedou. Thank you for the introduction. And also thank you and previous speakers in the earlier session for really setting the context for a discussion about regional cooperation. So I'm going to talk a little bit today about what ESCAP is working on with our member states to really envision a strengthened regional cooperation through a regional modality or action plan on air pollution. I can go right to my slides. As a number of speakers have already said today, this is an urgent issue for the region. I think it's well understood now, both the health impacts as well as the economic costs. What may not be as well understood are some of the contributing factors, and that goes to where there might be some specific cooperation and collaboration around addressing some of the issues. So what you see here are the booming urban populations. We know that Asia Pacific is still rapidly urbanizing, and the way in which we urbanize is seriously contributing to the challenges of air pollution. We know about vehicle emissions and the way that cities are becoming very congested. We know, and Mushtaq, my colleague from UNEP, earlier talked a lot about municipal waste and waste and pollution. But we also have the agricultural practices, which was also mentioned, the slash and burn methods for land and field clearing, open burning of agricultural waste, but also livestock management, as well as inefficient transportation logistics. So the logistics goes a bit beyond what we normally consider in terms of traffic congestion and transportation issues that contribute to air pollution. And then there are other impacts, and some of the speakers today have already talked about some of these, the social and economic inequalities, the fact that pollution disproportionately impacts poorer populations and more vulnerable populations, including women and children. And then, as pointed out quite well by you, Mohamedou, the contribution of air pollution to climate change. So managing air pollution and air quality is part and parcel of our climate action responses. And clearly, air pollution across the region is linked to numerous sustainable development goals. It's mentioned explicitly in Goals 3 on good health and well-being, on sustainable cities and communities in Goal 11, and obviously the link to affordable and clean energy and the access to clean fuel and technologies in Goal 7. But there are other SDGs that have clearly some relationship with air pollution, including the way that industry, innovation, and infrastructure is developed. As Mushtaq pointed out earlier, SDG 12, responsible consumption and production, and then clearly climate action. But really, one of the most important things is that as our Executive Secretary said this morning, no single country and no individual can address the challenge of air pollution alone. It requires not just government, but it requires the private sector and individuals to all contribute to solutions. We know that there are a number of sub-regional initiatives that are already active and producing some results. The Northeast Asia Clean Air Partnership has been mentioned under NEASPEC, has been active. Mushtaq mentioned EANet, the Acid Deposition Monitoring Network for East Asia. There's the ASEAN Agreement on Transboundary Haze Pollution for the Southeast Asian countries. There's the Mali Declaration on transboundary effects in South Asia. So there are some sub-regional initiatives that are active and probably need to be linked and connected a bit better. And then there's some broader regional initiatives, Asia Pacific Clean Air Partnership, Clean Air Asia. And it's interesting to note that we have within the ESCAP region 8 countries who are signatories to the Convention on Long-Range Transboundary Air Pollution that our sister regional commission in Europe administers. That convention has demonstrated the effectiveness of regional cooperation at a broader level, reducing air pollution levels in its region across countries between 40 and 80% since its inception in 1990. So there are opportunities to look broader beyond their sub-regional initiatives and build on those sub-regional initiatives at the broader regional level. And the mandate is already there. In 2019, ESCAP member states came together recognizing what was being done, but also recognizing that air pollution was really was a regional challenge, was threatening sustainable development across the region, livelihoods, economies, etc. And invited all member states to strengthen both their domestic policies, but also to cooperate at the intergovernmental level on programs and developing initiatives with each other. Later that year, the General Assembly, as you all know, passed the International Day of Clean Air for Blue Skies resolution, which this forum is commemorating. But it's also interesting to note that within that resolution, they also called on member states to give consideration to enhancing international cooperation towards attaining clean air. So it's not just the recognition or the observance of the issue through an international day. It is also a mandate for member states to come together and strengthen actions both at the regional and global level. So following those mandates, ESCAP organized a series of sub-regional dialogues that were held earlier this year. And they were held in 4 different sub-regions within the ESCAP wider region. And what came from those sub-regional dialogues were key elements that could be considered within a regional modality. And you see them here on the right: air quality standards, open data sharing, an exchange of best practices, capacity building, and a commitment to a longer-term multilateral cooperation. And I'll address very briefly a little bit of each of those. So on air quality standards, I think we all know that standards vary across countries throughout our region. Different elements come into what is clean air, and that is certainly a divergence from the WHO global air quality guidelines. Very few countries are actually meeting the WHO guidelines, and the aspiration is that all countries would somehow have at least a target or aspiration to achieve those, and policies and standards in place to do so. So some thought about harmonized or common standards so that we have a better understanding across the region of where there are potential challenges and where solutions and regional cooperation could further support. The second is on open data sharing, and it's already been mentioned, the innovative nature of the GEM satellite and the new information, the innovative information that's being generated. So the advancements in air quality monitoring systems should make it easier for countries to better understand the sources and types of air pollution and address and develop policies in response. We all know that accurate emission inventories are essential to do this, but some countries are still lacking reliable information. So as mentioned earlier, the GEM satellite supplementing ground-based data and bringing all of this together and sharing the information will strengthen the ability of countries to develop science-based policies. The next is exchange of best practices, and again, my colleague Mushtaq mentioned the 25 clean air measures that were developed by UNEP in conjunction with the Climate and Clean Air Coalition. This was published in 2019 and identified, obviously, some of the best practices and science-based solutions that are proven to have potential to reduce air pollution. We know that the sources vary across the wide range of ESCAP's region, from heating in the northern parts of the region to cooling and traffic congestion in some of the southern regions. So the exchange of best practices to identify the most appropriate measures is an effective element and can be of further regional cooperation. The next on capacity building, I think everyone really understands that there are different levels of capacities that need to be improved, both at the national level to enact effective legislation and develop enforcement regimes. Local authorities, which are often faced with much of the burden of poor air quality, but lack some of the capacities and the jurisdiction to address have some abilities to contribute to solutions, including through traffic management and municipal solid waste policies. Industries obviously need to be addressed, and that includes the agricultural sector. And the transition to more sustainable management of those industries and practices is important, and that will require capacity building across multiple sectors. And we know that some of the countries in the region will need to be supported so that as policies and practices are improved, that they continue to grow as expected and their economies expand as planned. The support for innovative applications, allowing things like machine learning and data science and smart city technologies could actually be a priority focus for some of the low and middle income countries to allow them to leapfrog to more sustainable solutions. And then last, which is really the basis for regional cooperation, is a commitment to long-term and multilateral cooperation. So this includes the existing sub-regional initiatives, continuing to exchange on data, on policy developments and science, leveraging those institutions to accelerate actions and building on the scientific basis for that science policy interface. And then just to give you a little bit of feeling of where ESCAP is with member states. So member states are currently in consultations on a regional action program on air pollution. That should finish in this month. And then there will be consideration of that program at the ESCAP's Committee on Environment and Development, which will be the 29th of November to the 1st of December. And then once that's adopted, it goes forward to the Commission, and we would look forward to implementation on all of these elements of regional cooperation following that adoption. So I will stop there, and I know we'll have a Q&A opportunity at the end of the section. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Please give a big hand to Kurt Garian. Thank you. I will introduce third panelist, Mariana B. Kartner. She is a policy analyst of OECD Regulatory Policy Division. Maybe she could hear my voice. Can you hear me? No?
Yes.
Yes. Please share your presentation.
I don't have a presentation today.
I see.
Should I just speak? Can I just start? Yes, yes, thank you. So I actually decided not to do a presentation because we were given 5 minutes to speak, and I usually go over time with a presentation, so apologies for that. Well, very quickly, I'm Mariana Kartner, and as was just said, I work at the OECD Public Governance Directorate at the Regulatory Policy Division. And this is a bit different from most of the speakers today, in the sense that I'm not, and particularly in previous sessions, I'm not at all a specialist on air pollution, and we, at our part of the house, we work on really what are the right regulatory processes, what are the right governance structures at the national and the international levels to make policies work well, to have the impact that is being sought. And therefore, in this context, we have also done a study on enhancing air quality in Northeast Asia, together with our environmental experts at the OECD. But I wanted to give you the context that I come from a bit of a different scene. So one thing that we observe, and that's, I think, important to underline, that is true for really most of the policy areas that governments have to face today, is that most of the policy issues have either transnational causes and or consequences, and therefore require internationally coordinated solutions. And this one common conclusion that's true across policy fields is that policy coordination, or more specifically, international regulatory cooperation, as we call it at the OECD, can only be effective if it is grounded in a solid governance framework. And this is sort of what I'll try and focus on here with for the specific context of air pollution. As background, in June 2022, the OECD Ministerial Council adopted a recommendation on international regulatory cooperation to tackle global challenges, setting these different baselines on how to guide governments in addressing transboundary policy challenges. And all of our conclusions, including for air pollution, are based on those principles. First of all, air pollution is a classic example of a policy issue that requires close international cooperation. It's been said many times in the different presentations, and it is the very topic of our session. And there are several characteristics of air pollution that create a high incentive and a favorable context for the cooperation to actually work. Although as has been said, it is of course a challenge. First, transboundary air pollution is a strongly science-driven problem, and as such, it requires the agreement of common methodologies among the affected parties. Second, it is largely accepted that certain air pollutants travel across national borders, and here creating a global bad. And a number of experts spoke about it much better than I will. And finally, air pollution creates strong incentives for countries to cooperate because they won't be able to deal with it domestically with imported air pollution. With regulatory cooperation may reduce regulatory arbitrage, in the sense that regulatory arbitrage is when certain jurisdictions are chosen over others because their regulations are more flexible. And finally, cooperation will broaden the market for green technologies and lower prices. There are a variety of ways through which countries can work on bringing their policy frameworks together, and by learning from each other, strengthening coherence between policy approaches, and ultimately coming up with joint solutions. These can be unilateral, bilateral, regional, and multilateral, and can have different levels of bindingness, and typically it's recommended that there's a combination of these different ones. In Southeast Asia, we noticed in our study of 2020 that countries de facto use already a variety of these tools. Particularly, the previous speaker mentioned several in which curbing to curb air pollution at different levels of government. For instance, already from a unilateral standpoint, most countries use the 2005 WHO air quality standards as reference for the design of national air quality standards. There are also several countries that follow international standards related to emission from motor vehicles. Countries also engage in a number of bilateral cooperation efforts for air quality, for example, through MOUs, Memorandum of Understanding, by central government bodies, mostly national research institutions, but also by local authorities, such as intra-city cooperation, as has been mentioned. Countries have also celebrated a number of bilateral environmental cooperation agreements. And finally, China, Japan, and Korea also cooperate at the multilateral level through a host of trilateral and regional agreements established since the 1990s to deal with environmental challenges in Northeast Asia. All these cooperation approaches that already exist on air quality between the three countries result in a number of actors being involved in the regional air quality management in Northeast Asia, including domestic, regional, and international bodies. The variety of existing efforts show that there's high momentum to go further. It's encouraging news, but the reason of our meeting today shows that there's still a need to go further. And our report of 2020 gives a number of recommendations for the region to enhance its cooperation. On one hand, for a well-functioning air policy strategy, there's a need for governance already at the national level to ensure well-defined roles and responsibilities and guarantee that international information and agreements then trickle down to the national and local levels. Regional cooperation needs strong and effective domestic regulatory frameworks that neighbor countries can trust. And based on this, we recommend that countries continue to strengthen their domestic policies and particularly the enforcement frameworks for air quality. On the other hand, an effective reduction of air quality requires high ambitions and collaboration between governments jointly at the regional level. And for here, we recommend that they use the full potential of the agreements that already exist rather than creating new ones. That they also work towards more scientific agreement on key issues. This was, of course, the subject of many discussions previously, but there are existing platforms that bring together the scientific communities in China, Korea, and Japan in particular, and countries could build on these platforms to develop a common understanding of transboundary air pollution. An additional issue is promoting an IRC framework that accounts for the different circumstances under which countries deal with air pollution because of specific national circumstances. And we recommend to develop an IRC approach that is flexible enough to account for these specificities. Finally, while cooperation has so far focused on soft mechanisms, there is a good momentum to advance into stronger forms of cooperation, and countries should take advantage of this. Now, overall, there are already many well-functioning examples of transboundary air pollution agreements at the international level that countries can learn from. For example, the Convention on Long-Range Transboundary Air Pollution under the UNECE, or the Canada-United States Air Quality Agreement, which we did case studies for within our study of 2020, and more broadly, they can also benefit from many other well-functioning multilateral frameworks and their governance that exist in other policy areas, which shouldn't be forgotten because there's a lot of commonalities despite the specificities of air pollution. I hope this has been useful, and I look forward to the discussion.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing your opinion. I will introduce final panelist Kim Chul-hee, professor in Busan National University. Hello, professor. Did you hear me? Hello?
Hello, you hear me?
Yeah, I hear.
Okay, just let me see. Okay, good morning, everybody. My name is Charlie Kim. I'm just working at Busan National University, and then I'm just a university person. And I just noticed that every speaker just mentioned the importance of the emission reductions, and then like science versus policy dialogue or linkage or something. But my talk is something like just academic, kind of like atmospheric chemistry, environmental understandings for the understanding of the transboundary air pollutants. So my topic is the recent futures of secondary air pollutants over Northeastern Asia. So the secondary air pollutants, which is mainly ozone and PM10, I just want to talk my story in a different angle, like just in reduction, emission, or linkage or something. I just focus on like just a little bit science. As most of the audience know, the PM2.5, fine dust, and then ozone are two major transboundary air pollutants over Northeastern Asia. And then therefore the two just major pollutants should be evaluated for the just effective prevention and then control. So therefore, I just want to show some recent annual variations and then also just some interesting results of the two air pollutants during the COVID-19 pandemic period and then summary. I just brought two results from two sources. One is the LTP project. That's the expert meeting, tripartite expert meeting from China, Japan, and Korea. And then I just cited this summary report. And then that's showing some tendencies of PM2.5, China, Korea, and Japan. And you can see some dramatic decreasing PM2.5 in China, and then Korea moderately, and then slowly in Japan. So in other sources, that's just from literature, academic literature, and then also shows some similar reduction behaviors, like PM2.5 is decreased by 33%. And then the contribution sectors are like this. So strengthening the industrial emission standards, updating on industrial boilers, that's kind of like a 41% to 20%. And then phasing out the outdated industrial capacities and the others here. So therefore, all of the just the speakers and the literature said that the emission reduction is one of the priorities. That's the priorities to reduce the PM2.5. And then also it's kind of successful over the Northeast Asian countries, especially over the recent years. However, when we just move on to the ozone, the phase is totally different. This is from the literatures of the ozone. That's just from the measurement of OMI satellite. That's also similar to the GEMS that's already addressed in the session 1. But OMI is also just the good tools to diagnose the seasonal or annual variations of the Northeast Asian countries here. So we just subdivided into 4 sectors: R1, China, East China, R2, Korea, and then R3, Japan, and then even the ocean areas in the ocean, Asia-Pacific Ocean. Here we can see the similar increasing trends here. So the surprisingly, that increasing rate is almost similar, even in this ocean area here. So therefore, the ozone is indicating the new or some persistent transboundary air pollutants over Northeast Asia country, or even in Pacific Ocean here. So therefore, probably previous speakers stressed the importance of the ozone, but here from this satellite measurement, we can see some precursors of ozone here, NOx, and then formaldehyde here. So still, we can see the just concentrating the NOx here, pretty much in megacities like Jinjin areas, Shanghai, Seoul, Korea, and then Tokyo as well. This is also just mega city based NOx saturated, just spatial distributions. However, just HCHO, formaldehyde is a little bit focusing on the high populated area, but a little bit broadly located. broadly distributed over the Northeast Asian country, which means that the NOx, just the saturation of the NOx is a little bit different issues to reduce the ozone tendencies in the future. So this is the result from the Korean Peninsula, and then probably during the COVID-19 for Seoul and Busan here. Seoul is, the capital of the South Korea, and then Busan is the southeasternmost metropolitan city in Korea. And then we just compared the trends of the ozone and PM2.5 for both pre-COVID-19 as well as COVID-19 period. So we can see the clearly decreasing trend in PM2.5 in here, Busan and Seoul by approximately 17–18%. And then also the ozone, the precursors SO2 and NO2 is also decreasing in a similar percentage rate. However, ozone is still increasing even during the COVID-19 pandemic areas, which means that the ozone is a little bit non-linear. That's not exactly related to the precursors emission reductions. So therefore, the bottom line is the satellite measurements also clearly indicate the ozone is just emerging transboundary air pollutants as well. But I'm not mentioning that the PM2.5 is not important, but both important. But it's time to just turn and focus on the ozone because of these annual trends over the recent years. So this is the same slides here. Just the PM2.5 for Seoul is decreasing, and then Busan as well decreasing. However, ozone is increasing here, even during the COVID-19 pandemic areas. However, we have an interesting story here in these figures. Also, the interactions between ozone versus PM2.5, which is also interesting, because for the lower PM2.5, this is the almost the linear proportional relations. Okay, but after the high PM2.5 region, that's the inverse proportional here. So therefore, the high PM2.5 occurs, in Korea, they are during the cold seasons like winter or early spring or something. But in like late spring or early fall during the summertime, it's just a lower PM2.5, but it's just a synergy effect between the ozone and the PM2.5. Therefore, the second formation environments should be considered. Like I said, that almost previous speakers mentioned about the reductions primarily, but also the secondary formation, atmospheric environmental chemistry would be also considered here in just emission reduction studies. So therefore, this is the last slide here, that ozone and PM2.5 is also has different behaviors, but in ozone is increasing even though during the pandemic period. And then this primary emission reduction plus, therefore, secondary formation environment studies, and then is just a role and an understanding would be also needed to have just effective emission studies between two main transboundary air pollutants. So the science policy linked to effective ozone reduction strategy will be needed, both from scientific legitimacy and then coherent governments on the multilateral basis, like just a recap as the previous speakers already mentioned about that, and then the science recommendations versus the policy dialogue would be also important through the multilateral relationship dialogue, like a recap. So that's all I prepared, and then thank you.
Now we are going to have a discussion time. So,
thank you very much again, Kurt, Mariana, and Cheol-hee. I know we are over time, so I'm going to maybe change the discussion into a different format. First asking in the room here, as our audience has been patiently listening to you. And so let's give the opportunity to the audience in the room to ask 1 or 2 questions, keeping in mind that a lot of effort has been done in terms of cooperation, scientific cooperation, regional cooperation, as well as policy frameworks, etc. But there are challenges and there are gaps. There are also opportunities out there to accelerate the deployment and adoption of green technologies that may help us to address some of the issues associated with air pollution. So opening the floor in the room to see if we have 1 or 2 questions from the audience. Yes, do we have a microphone that can go over here? If you can introduce yourself and then ask the question. So I suggest we collect the questions and then we have 1 round of answering them.
Thank you. I'm Hyang Suk Song from UNAPCICT, located Songdo, Incheon. I have a question to you, Director of GGGI. I learned that from your presentation that $1 spent in air pollution can have $9 benefit to public health and so on. So I'd like to know how you come up with the 9 times benefit. Thank you.
All right. Very good question. Thank you. In the room, any other question? All right, no questions in the room. We have our speakers online. I am also going to ask our speakers to just take 30 seconds, not more than 30 seconds, to give us 1 or 2 challenges that you think we are facing, that, or 1 or 2 challenges that we need to address if you want to accelerate the solution in addressing the air pollution issues when it comes to regional or international cooperation. And then I will finish with answering the question on the economic benefits. Who would like to go first? We can go in the same order, Kurt and then Mariana. And, yes.
Sure, thank you. Thank you for the question, and I'll try to do within 30 seconds. I think the 2 challenges, the main challenges facing the region are the lack of data and the lack of comparability. And that goes to the fact that there are varying air quality standards and different definitions of what's clean air across the region, across countries. So what may be deemed clean air in one country is not the same in another country. So I think some discussion about harmonized air quality standards would be important, and then the sharing of data so that there is some transparency on where the sources of air pollution are coming and who's actually being impacted by those pollution sources. I'll stop there.
Thank you, Kurt. Mariana, over to you.
Thank you. Yes, actually, I was also going to say that I think the first step seems to me to be the scientific kind of consensus in the region between the countries to be able to then build a common framework, international framework with an ambitious governance and systematic cooperation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mariana. Professor?
Okay, and I just want to mention simply that just like everybody know that the importance of the those Eastern Asian countries, but the multilateral governments should pay more attention to this science-based multilateral or some kind of like just a policy dialogue that's also just containing a lot of meanings, like just audience just raise questions. So therefore, probably the main point is that the science and then the policy linkage would be much more important and one of the priorities at this point. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And coming back to your question on the economic benefits, this came from the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency study back in 2010, when they did this exercise of looking at the investment in infrastructure investment and other investment in addressing air pollution issues, what type of benefit that will result in terms of economic benefits. And that study kind of replicated an example that was done on a similar study on malaria affected countries, where they looked at the economic loss, which was estimated to more than $6 billion a year, the loss of productivity because of people who get sick, not people who are dying, the millions dying, but the people who get sick, or people who need to take care of members of the family who are sick, because in many rural communities, when you have someone who is sick, you have 2 or 3 people taking care of that person. So all of those got into a modeling that came up with this number. So a similar exercise was done for the impact of malaria beyond the health impact, the loss of productivity and the economic loss. And the same on air pollution, certainly, I'm sure the number will be much bigger. So in a way, it's also raising awareness on not only looking at the health impact, the environmental impact, but also what are some of the untouched, I would say, impact when it's come to how many people are not able to be 100% productive, how many people are being taking care of sick people either at home or hospital, or how many people need to stop working for many reasons linked to health issues due to air pollution. So when you look at that part of the problems, the magnitude are quite high. So that's the importance of this figure. In a way, it's also part of raising awareness that actually we can create green jobs, we can create other opportunities for green development, but we are also able to contribute to the economy by making sure that less people get sick, less people spend time taking care of sick people. Yeah.
Thank you.
So I know we went over time, and as we are the last session, are you planning to do some closing remarks? No? So maybe I take the opportunity to thank our MC. You seem to be busy on your screen there.
Yeah, thank you.
But also the crew, the technical people behind the scene, and a lot of our friends from MOFA who have been working days and nights to prepare this session. And more importantly, an event like this can only happen when we have people interested in the audience. Thank you, all of you, despite your busy time, to be with us today, to share your views and ideas, and to contribute to addressing this very important issue of air pollution. In GGGI, we were proud to go ahead with the campaign on Blue Skies and Net Zero. We think this is preventable, and together we will be able to make it happen. Thank you, all of you, and have a good rest of the day.
Thank you, President. Big hands to Mohamed Chinkara. He's a director and MC too. Thank you. And session 1, 2, 3 is completely over. There will be a lunch and field trip. Thank you for attending this forum. I hope we will meet again soon. Thank you.